Welcome to the water filtration lab activity. If you have not completed the pre-lab question, pause the video and complete that now. When you're ready, start the video again. In part 1, we will be building a water filtration system. You will also be sketching this system, so if you want to sketch as you go, you can pause the video as we go, or if you want to wait till the end to sketch it all at once, you can always pause and go back. Pause the video now if you need to get ready to sketch. If not, let's get started. Here are the materials that we'll be using, so let's take a little closer look at each group. We have our filter tubes, and if you look close, you can see little holes in the bottom of those tubes. We have our funnel, which will be on the top of the system, and we have our basin, which will be at the bottom, which will collect our clean water. Next, we have cotton balls, filter paper, and filter sponges, which we'll be using at different sections of our system. Notice that the filter paper is a lot thinner than the filter sponges. Next are the materials that we'll be using in each of the sections to help filter our water. So the first thing I'm going to do is make some dirty water. I have some dirt samples here, and I'm going to pour it into my cup of water and give it a nice little stir. And after getting it nice and kind of stirred up to begin with, I'm going to set it aside for a minute. So let's start building our system. I've got my basin here at the bottom, and I'm going to put on a cap because our filter tubes are going to fit into that cap. Our first section, there's my first filter tube with the holes in the bottom. And our first section, I'm going to pack in 2 cotton balls, and I'm going to pack them in pretty tight, as tight as I can. 2 cotton balls. After getting those packed in pretty well, I'm going to add just a thin layer of our quartz sand. It's not going to fill it all the way up, it's just going to be a light layer on top of the cotton balls. I'm going to kind of pack it down just a little bit. Once I have that ready, I'm going to carefully put that first filter tube, you can kind of see my layers there, I'm going to put that first filter tube into the basin. Here's a close-up of what that first section looks like. Our next section, again, another filter tube with the holes. I'm going to first put in 1 piece of the thin filter paper. I'm going to get it down in there, make sure it's nice and flat. Once I get that in there, I'm going to add some activated carbon. I'm going to fill it up about halfway. Once I get it halfway and kind of leveled out a little bit, then I'm going to connect that tube on top of our first filter tube. And here's a close-up of kind of what it looks like. In our next filter tube, I'm going to put 1 of the filter sponges, and notice it's a little bit thicker. I'm going to pack it down into the bottom of that. Once I get that down in there, I'm going to add the porcelain sand, and again I'm going to fill the tube up about halfway. There it is, about halfway. And then I'm going to attach that on top of the carbon section. And here's what it kind of looks like up close. All right, the last section, again, I'm going to use the filter sponge, kind of pack it down in there. Once I get it in there, I'm going to add the crushed granite. It's going to be filled about halfway up as well. And then we'll add that to the top. And here's what it looks like a little closer up. Alright, so let's add our funnel to the top. And then I'm going to grab my dirty water again, and I'm going to give it another little stir, get it stirred up. And then I'm going to carefully pour the dirty water into the funnel about halfway up the funnel, because we don't want it to overflow and get messy. And as you can see, look at it immediately start to drip and filter. This is, after a couple of minutes, you can kind of see it has really slowed down some. But look in the basin and the water that's there and how clean it is. Here's a little closer look at the individual sections as our filtration is happening. A pretty good look at our basin down there. This is at the sort of at the beginning, and then after a while we've still got it dripping, although it has slowed down some. And now it's time to pause the video and complete the questions under part 1. When you're ready, start the video again for part 2. Part 2 is about a different type of filtration system using peat moss. And if you're not real sure what peat moss is, here's kind of an image of kind of what it looks like. You know, it's kind of what it sounds like, some mossy substance.
One of the big challenges with non-point water pollution in rural areas is where wastewater from buildings enters into septic fields and places where human waste can get into streams and rivers. Here at Bernheim, we're a rural area as well. We take the wastewater from our building and it flows into a septic tank. Nothing different about that. But then instead of sending it to a drain field where it can possibly escape into streams and lakes nearby, we actually send our wastewater through a series of 6 peat filtration beds. They're big pods that sit underneath the ground, and inside of them is peat moss, and that's a home for all these little living microscopic animals. And the human waste that comes through those pods is food for those microscopic organisms. So they eat that waste, and the water that comes out the far end is actually clean water. You could actually swim in it. We don't do that, however. What we do is we pipe that water across to our nursery, and we irrigate our nursery area with that. Now, the neat thing about that is that the plants that we irrigate then become plants that we use in some of the restoration and conservation projects here at Bernheim that also help protect water.
And now it's time to put your thinking cap on and finish part 2. Good luck.